Hey gang, it's Doug with Doug's Timeshare Travels. Today we're taking a day trip over to St. Elmo, Colorado from Breckenridge, Colorado. It's about an 80-mile drive, and it'll take you about an hour and 50 minutes to get all the way up to St. Elmo. St. Elmo is about 25 miles away from Buena Vista, so if you wanted to make kind of a day of it, you could head out from Breckenridge, get breakfast in Breckenridge, head out, spend some time up in St. Elmo, and then maybe on your way back, stop in Buena Vista and get a little lunch. This is Cascade Falls. This is along the drive up to St. Elmo. Also along the drive, I believe it's Mount Princeton Hot Springs. So if you want to spend a little time in the hot springs, you would have the opportunity to do that. St. Elmo was founded in 1880, with the heyday being between 1880 and 1890. That is the mercantile store, I believe, which had to be rebuilt. It was destroyed by fire in early part of 2000s. St. Elmo had a couple of booms from 1880 to 1890, and I believe the early 1900s until 1917. The railroad, the Denver, South Park, and Pacific Railroad ran to St. Elmo until, depending on what you read, somewhere between 1922 and 1926. I believe the last train left St. Elmo in 1922 with most of the residents on that train. The building you're looking at here is the Stark Brothers Mercantile Post Office, and it was also the Home Comfort Hotel. You can see this two-story building a little bit behind there. The Stark Brothers, their family is largely responsible for the preservation of this town. Starting in the 1920s, when the town began to decline, they started buying up many of the lots at tax sales, believing either that the mining operations might resume, and when it was apparent that they would not resume, using it kind of as a tourist destination, renting out many of the buildings as cabins. Most of this town remains pretty well preserved. The last of the Stark family would have been Annabelle Stark. She died in about the 1960s. And it is said that her ghost still haunts the town and can occasionally be seen patrolling the town with her rifle in hand. Most of these buildings date back to the 1880s. You have the Main Street, and the Main Street does have an active general store where you can buy souvenirs, water, soda, coffee cups, and some books on the history of the town. There are a few residents that still live here. This is, by the way, all private property. It is all privately owned and maintained. In the summertime, this is a tourist attraction. We were here towards the end of the summer. None of the buildings were open for us to go into. I don't know whether they are during the busy summer months or not. Would probably depend upon how safe they are to go into. You can see in the back there one of the many outhouses that's still standing. And many of these buildings, as you notice, are false fronted. There are a few two-story buildings still in town, but most of them have those false fronts like what you see right there. One of the main attractions in St. Elmo right now is off-roading. St. Elmo was centrally located around many of the mining towns, and so there is kind of a network of passes that go from St. Elmo to the various other towns that used to exist or up to the old mines. You can rent at the general store off-road vehicles and drive some of these passes. This is one of the back streets here. And again, there's several of the old buildings that are fairly well preserved. It's really a pretty pleasant walk. Now, eventually you'll notice some of these houses appear to still be lived in. I am relatively sure that some of them are still rented out as cabins. It'd be really interesting to spend a couple of nights up here. That appears to be one that might be in good enough shape that it's rented out. And a little bit further up here, you'll see where I believe some people still live. There are a few people that live in town and are, as I understand it, the caretakers of St. Elmo. There's the house right there that I'm pretty sure that some of the caretakers of the town still live in. Now, at the end of this street, that is the beginning of Tin Cup Pass. And you can rent off-road vehicles and drive up and over that pass over to the little town of Tin Cup. I believe Tin Cup is still an active town, mostly a ghost town. We haven't traveled over there yet. Eventually, we plan on getting over to Tin Cup. This is the old one-room schoolhouse. Again, at the time we were there, it's late season. It wasn't open, but I believe it's open to tourism to go into during regular season. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. And we're going to leave you with a little view of Chalk Creek, which runs right through St. Elmo.